Hello, in this video I'm going to respond to a YouTuber, Some Ordinary Gamers. So, a while ago he made this video about the map community. It has great ratings, it has like 99% approval ratings. The guy has 2.5 million subscribers, so clearly what he says seems to resonate with a lot of people. But I'm not terribly impressed by this video, I'm not a huge fan of it, so I thought it might be worthwhile to, take a look at his positions, and I'll give my 5 cents on them. And by the way, map comes from words minor attracted person, so it kind of means pedophile. There's a subtle difference, but just think of it meaning someone attracted to children. That's close enough. Okay, so despite the fact that I'm a big fan of this video, I wouldn't call Some Ordinary Gamers or Muta, that's what people call him, an anti or a bigot. Okay, I think he's a YouTuber who just decided to make a sort of casual commentary on pedophilia, which is fine. People totally have the right to do that. So yeah, I have clips that I'm going to respond to. This video is going to be unscripted, so I don't know if that's a good idea, but the reasoning is that I would like to eventually be able to make unscripted videos and have them come out decent, because if I'm responding to comments, for example, I don't necessarily want to prepare a script for that. So this is kind of an experimental video, my first lesson to learn this skill. Nothing more to add, I guess, so let's get going.
Now, everything usually has an origin point, right? And the origin point for this hellhole may have just been 4chan. Here's a post from 4chan back in 2016. We're creating a new gender to troll SJWs with. Clover gender, a child trapped in a man's body who is attracted to other children. Pronouns, CI, okay, clear, himself. We will be trolling on Tumblr and Facebook. Needed propaganda images accounts, and they have like a Discord service that's completely removed. So as you can see, everything has an origin point. All right, it is there.
So Muta has this claim that the 4chan trolling campaign of 2016 started the map movement. Now, maybe Muta is not aware of this, but there exist these organizations called Before You Act and Virtuous Pedophiles, and they have existed much longer than 5 years, and they essentially argue that, well, there exist non-offending pedophiles and society should kind of acknowledge them a little better, and they think there should be help available for these people. They're against stigmatization. So yeah, and also I can mention that there are these studies, such as one called Non-Offending Pedophiles by James Cantor. Now, incidentally, it's from the same year as the trolling campaign, 2016, but it would be kind of far-fetched to make any connection between the two. And there are also these two studies about the stigmatization of pedophilia, 2013 and 2014. And yeah, they raise similar talking points, or exact same talking points as the map community about the stigmatization of pedophiles. And even on YouTube about 9 or 10 years ago, maybe some of you will remember, I'm not exactly sure when, like what the year was, but on YouTube, in the atheist corner of YouTube, if you want to call that, which I followed then, there were plenty of small to medium-sized channels who were making arguments that about the distinction between pedophile and child molester, and of course they were the antis of that time. But yeah, these arguments have definitely been around for much longer than 5 years. Now, I'm not going to name any YouTube channels because I don't know if they want that publicity anymore. But I'm willing to concede that the 4chan trolling campaign at most fueled something that already existed. It never created anything substantial, in my opinion. But let's see what Muta has to say next.
But as you can see, this is back in the highlight of the SJW, like, political wars. I don't care about any of this. I don't care. Hey, listen, if you like to fight for social justice, do it. All I care about is these people just staying away from them little kids. All right, it is what it is.
Now, I think it's kind of funny that Muta says that he has no problem with people fighting for social justice, and then he makes the whole video essentially complaining about people doing exactly that. Now, I know people don't want to view pedophiles as a minority or you know, I mean, it's definitely not a protected minority in the sense that we don't at large recognize it as a minority, but you know, they fight for social justice from their perspective. And just like a Muslim could be against this generalization that all Muslims are jihadists, a pedophile, you know, the pedophile's version of fighting that same kind of social justice is to sort of make the point that not all pedophiles should probably be painted with the same brush, that they're not all gray mass. That's social justice from their perspective. So yeah, they are doing exactly that. And you know, Muta says that, you know, pedophiles should stay away from children. Well, it isn't exactly the agenda of the MAP movement, in my opinion, you know, as far as I understand, to say that, well, pedophiles should just hang around with kids, no problem. I mean, that's not exactly their main message. It's more like they're against the demonization that goes on. But now, personally, if, like, you know, now that Muta brings this topic up, now I'll give my 5 cents. Now, I think it's sort of hypocritical, or we have double standards when we don't have a problem when incels, like people, incel comes from words involuntarily celibate. Now, we as a society don't have a problem with them being around women. Okay, so we don't think that they are ticking time bombs, or that they are incapable of controlling themselves. So it's kind of weird that it's when someone is attracted to children, we assume that they will have to offend, that they can't have morals or self-control or principles. So it's kind of silly. Now, obviously, I'm saying pedophiles should be around children. It's obviously not that black and white. There exist pedophiles who definitely are not safe around children. But what I'm saying is that it's always problematic to just categorically say that, you know, they will all offend, you know, if they are around a child. Just like we know that incels don't all rape women when they are somewhere where there are women around. So it's just my opinion. Now, you know, it's an unpopular opinion, no doubt, but it's just the way I think about it. Okay.
This is where the legitimacy of the MAP movement is dead. That's why I'm showing this to you. There is no movement. There is no, like, there is none of this. Okay, you literally started off on a trolling attempt from 4chan. The people that took it seriously and made it into something, your basis is literally based off of a fucking image board raid, an image board trolling operation. Imagine, I just blew your minds. All right, there you go.
Okay, I already pointed out why this just isn't accurate. That, yeah, these arguments have been around for longer than 5 years, but I just want to add something here real quick. Now, even if the MAP movement started off as an image board raid, that's its origin. Let's imagine that. Well, you know, you kind of still have to argue against the arguments being made. You can't just appeal to the ludicrous origin of something, of some ideology, and say therefore it's wrong. Now you still have to address the issues being made and the points being made. I mean, as an example, let's say the idea for the rights of women to vote started off as a joke amongst men. Now, you wouldn't denounce women's voting rights because the idea started off that way. Okay, you still have to argue against the theories, against the arguments, and talking about legitimacy. Now, I already in this short video have linked to 3 studies, you know, that essentially demonstrate the core ideas of the MAP movement about non-offending pedophiles, about the harmful effects of stigmatization. Now, you know, they are in my description box, so you can read the studies yourself. So, you know, I don't know what better legitimacy to seek for than scientific papers. And by the way, where's the anti-legitimacy? I mean, sometimes they can't even be bothered to look up what the word pedophile means, let alone have studies that are relevant to the points they're making. So yeah, I think it's antis who kind of need to step it up, in my opinion.
But as you can see, they show like fun facts with Squidwards. Maps aren't valid and never will be. Get help. You are sacrificing a child's mental health by saying that pedos are okay. Every day, children lose their innocence. Someone couldn't keep their sick and twisted desires. And don't try to defend it in the comments. That is a factual fucking statement.
So I think I'm going to address this post line by line. Maps aren't valid and never will be. Well, this is just this person being a naysayer. You can be a naysayer about, let's say, veganism. You can say that vegans will never succeed, or that I don't know, socialists will never succeed, or capitalists will always fail. I mean, you can say things like that, but that's not you demonstrating that they are wrong. Okay, so it's just this person's opinion, and it's like, kind of irrelevant. Get help. This is very important subject, but I'll talk about this later when Muta brings this up. So for now, I'm going to skip it. You're sacrificing a child's mental health by saying that pedophilia is okay. Well, I'm pretty sure words don't have that power, but obviously now I concede attitudes and ideologies mean something. They matter. They influence behavior, obviously. So, but this is just stated too directly for my taste. But maybe that's a bit of a nitpicky thing for me to comment on. So, my real problem with this is that we have to understand there's a distinction between saying pedophilia is okay and child molestation is okay. So we have to be careful with our language, because as we see, shortly, this person seems to mean child molestation. Everyday children lose their innocence because someone couldn't keep their sick and twisted desires in their pants. I mean, yeah, exactly. This is what I was talking about. It's like all negative effects, all negative things that can be traced to pedophilia, in my opinion, are caused by irresponsible pedophiles, child molesters, and that's why we kind of have to understand what the core issue is. It's not people having the desire in their head, because that's a feeling in their head. I mean, you can play violent video games and murder people, and generally wouldn't see that as a problem, even though it's a thought crime as well. So the problem is child molesters. Exactly. Yeah, that's right.
If you don't understand what's going on, these people have basically tried to attach themselves to the LGBTQ+, and it's like, well, them gay people? you know what else should be fine after them gays? The MAP group, which is not okay. All right, let me give you a factual difference, okay, for the people in the audience that may try to defend this. Gay people are two consenting adults, all right? If me and Steve want to pork each other's buttholes later on, we're two consenting adults. It's okay for us to do it, all right? If we want to get into that, we'll get into that. But when you involve a child, too young to make a conscious, proper, rational, consensual decision, that's when it gets really fucking bad. And that's where these people should never, ever be accepted.
Now, isn't this just an argument against child molesters, those who actually act on it unethically? This isn't argument against pedophiles categorically, unless you really think they all are doing it, which is not the case. But you don't need consent to be attracted to people, despite their age. I mean, I'm going to demonstrate this now real quick. This video is going to be awfully long as well. I thought it would be like 10 minutes, but it just drags on and on. So yeah, I mean, if you're a telephile means a person who is mainly attracted to adults. If you're a telephile and walk down the street and past an attractive lady, and you're attracted to her, well, you don't need to go up to the woman and ask her consent. Can I be attracted to you? That's not what people need. They don't need consent from people to be attracted to them. Therefore, saying kids can't consent is not an argument against being attracted to them. It's an argument against molesting them. Okay, so that's why the argument fails as a reason to condemn pedophiles. It's a reason to be against child molesters. Okay, and that's we have to keep that separate, because like I said, I'm repeating myself, but this is important. You don't need consent to be attracted to someone. It's just a fact.
There are individuals literally trying to normalize a criminal behavior, all right? It's just not okay. The end game of this entire fucking defense squad, the entire end game of this is something that's just not fucking legal. And that's what I'm trying to get at. There's nothing you can say to come out and defend this to me and make it look somewhat normalized and somewhat okay.
Couple of points. Now, I think this is my interpretation, but it seems Muta is trying to say something is bad because it's illegal. Again, like, this is my interpretation, but he seems to repeat it awfully lot, that the maps are trying to normalize something that's against the law, as if that means they shouldn't be doing that, when in reality what the law says is kinda irrelevant when we are trying to propose something is either bad or right. Like, for example, in Saudi Arabia, gay sex is against the law. Now, you wouldn't tell gays living there that they should quit trying to normalize gay sex because it's illegal there. So it's kind of irrelevant what the law says to what's actually ethical or not. And I definitely think child molestation is unethical, but the way you argue against it is just point out it has a victim. It's an imposition people don't have the right to make. And what's also important to note is that we have to kind of make a distinction between different branches of map advocacy. And sometimes I may be guilty of that myself. I say that this is what maps want. This is what the map community does, when in reality it's two communities. There are the pro-contact maps who are trying to abolish age of consent. Pro-contact means that they're okay with child-adult sex. So that's one side. And then there are the anti-contact maps, as represented by Before You Act and Virtuous Pedophiles, for example. And they have absolutely no problem whatsoever with the law banning child molestation. So obviously this branch doesn't want to normalize something that's against the law. At most, they want to normalize something that's already legal, that is being attracted to kids.
You know, if I'll be real, there's been a fair amount of people who told me, but Muta, back in the old days, this was okay, all right? Why are people such prudes now? You know what was okay back in the old days of the cavemen? No fucking consent, too. You want to get back to that? Humanity evolves, and so do our ideals and values. So don't you fucking throw that shit at me, dog, all right? Because I got all the rebuttals in the world to win at you. You think only Destiny can debate? Bro, I'll bring the heat just right there. It's very easy to win against people like this.
Well, exactly. I mean, Muta acknowledges it as well, that appeal to tradition is a fallacy. Of course, the ironic thing is that when he keeps repeating the same thing, that, well, the map community is trying to normalize something that's illegal, well, he's guilty of the same fallacy. He's appealing to tradition as well. It's just the present day tradition that he's appealing to, while some maps are saying that, well, in the olden times it used to be okay, therefore it's okay. Well, it's still the same fallacy. It doesn't change that.
Now, what's also interesting and intriguing about this is, like, you can see, like, how much they vie for attention. Like, here's one tweet that came out. I'm not gonna, like, name names or anything or drop, because these people really just want attention. The less attention you give them, the better.
Is it really intriguing that an activist would try to get attention? I was thinking about Greta Thunberg. Now, most would agree that she's a great activist, but she wouldn't be if she didn't try to get attention. So, yeah, I fail to see anything intriguing about Muta's observation here.
I'm not here to hate on these people, like, blatantly, right? Listen, okay, if you genuinely feel attracted to fucking children, I never understood the concept of trying to normalize and make it okay. There's things like psychosexual therapy, there's actual therapists you can talk to when it comes to situations like this. But why is it that you're so dead set on defending? Why are you so willing to die on this hill rather than appropriately seek fucking help?
Well, because it's conducive to that very goal of getting help to pedophiles. People don't want to hear that, I'm sure, but stigma is a problem for them when it comes to them having the willingness to step on and get help. And it's the same with all mental health issues. Like, if we have a society that stigmatizes people with schizophrenia, you can sort of see that fewer of them will go out and get help. And it's not just getting help from professionals, it's to get a safety net from friends, from family. So and stigma obviously makes it pretty damn hard, and obviously Now the counter argument to that would be that well, these people, these therapists, they are trained to confront these people. They are professionals. They shouldn't let the stigma influence them and influence their work, to affect their work. Well, obviously they are not immune to society's stigma. And even if they were immune to society's stigma, well, pedophiles don't know that. They would still be afraid in a society where they are viewed as monsters. Like, the factual problem is that they have the fear that they will be condemned. It doesn't matter if the therapist is decent. If the fear is there, that's going to be a deterrent for them to get and seek that help. And the fact is, I would argue, is that they are not immune to that stigma. Like, for example, when there will be fewer therapists who get training to help pedophiles if we consider pedophiles as subhumans or even monsters. You kind of have to view these people as human beings before you can help them. It just works that way. So we don't need demonization, we need rehumanization. Now, the dilemma for these people, it's not a dilemma for me because I don't need a fucking scapegoat to just, pile my problems on, a nice group of people to use on TV series as the archetypical enemy or evil person. So I don't need a fucking minority like that. But for these people, it's a dilemma because, as Muta says, he wants there to be help for these people, but to make that help easily accessible, we kind of need a bit of normalization, because when we are trying to get rid of the stigma, it's going to appear as normalization. There's absolutely no way around it. It's always going to appear as normalization.
What's the next step? If you're attracted to kids, all right, and you keep festering those thoughts without seeking proper guidance and counseling, what happens is a lot of these people let these thoughts fester, and maybe it takes a day, maybe it takes a week, maybe it takes a month, maybe it takes years. Eventually, the thoughts go from just thoughts to eventually predatory, to eventually actually performing these actions in reality. That's unfortunately what you go down to.
Okay, so I'm afraid I have to say I take issue with some of the claims here. So first, Muta uses the word fester in the context of pedophilia, that it festers. Obviously, he's using the word metaphorically. He means that it gets worse over time. And then his another point is that he argues that all pedophiles need help to prevent them from offending, and if they don't get help, they will eventually, 1 week, 1 month, or 1 year, eventually they will offend. So I'm going to deal with these claims separately. Can we really say that a sexuality festers? I'm pretty sure many people will respond to, well, pedophilia is not a sexuality. Well, there is actual science that kind of demonstrates that it can be viewed as sexuality. It can be viewed as sexual age orientation as opposed to sexual gender orientation. So yeah, we don't say that gays become super gays if their homosexuality is left untreated. Straight people don't become like super fucking heterosexuals, so pedos don't become super pedos, realistically speaking. Now, someone could argue that, well, what if they over time lose their impulse control for some reason? They are less able to restrain themselves, perhaps. Yeah, but that's a separate phenomenon. It's a different characteristics. It's not their sexuality that festers then. If anything, their sexual drive gets weaker by time, and we know this as a fact. It's Viagra is for the elderly mostly, predominantly. It's not for the younger people generally. So, and we know actually from studies even that child molesters usually start offending when they're young, not when they're old. Okay. Now, what about this idea that all pedophiles need help, otherwise they will start raping children? Well, first we have to talk a little what this help is about. It's not to change the person's sexuality, that's for sure. Modern therapy for pedophiles, it's not, in order to turn the pedophile into teleophile. It just isn't. It's not possible. You can't turn a gay person into straight. And I'm not just making this analogy because I can, and it's just something that would be tempting to make. There's actually science that argues that pedophilia is not curable as a preference. Okay. So this help is meant to make the pedophile cope with their sexuality, to help him live ethically with their sexuality and hopefully as meaningful life as they can. So it's a skill, and like with many other skills, for example, you could play the piano and play the piano pretty decently without ever having paid for a teacher. So you can learn skills, many skills, without any help necessarily. Now, obviously, pedophiles are individuals. Some of them need help, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing. I'm not like shaming anyone here. It's just the fact that they are individuals, and this is a cliche. I hate to use cliches, but it's quite important to realize this idea that there is great variation within this population, and this is even some kind of a bias people have. I feel that when they see minorities or groups of people like blacks or Jews or Muslims, they see they fail to sort of divide that category into subcategories. They just see it as a one, like all Chinese are supposed to be similar and eat dogs. Well, that's ludicrous. It's just we have to understand the fact that there are these subcategories within subcategories, I would argue, and that's why it's too black and white, in my opinion, to say that well, they all need help, or otherwise they will offend. And that's the real extraordinary claim Muta makes, I think, that if they don't get help, they will offend. I mean, it has some pretty weird implications. I mean, just listen. It's if you're saying that they need help, otherwise they'll offend eventually, and this is a fact. Let's imagine this is 100% fact. What the implication of this is that pedophiles are actually immortal. They can't die until they get help or either molest a child. And if pedophiles aren't immortal, they can die of old age, for example. Well, then we can't say that they will do these things necessarily. And there's certainly no fucking God or natural law that dictates that they must offend at some point. Like, when would the deadline be? Is it when they're 70? Is it when they're 60? When they're 80? Like, there would have to be some kind of a deadline when they will have to do it if it's some kind of a fatalistic thing that they will do it, okay? And, I know this video is going to get a bit long, but just, quick points. I mean, surely you can imagine people with some kind of a lifelong dream that they never fulfill. Like, imagine someone could want to go on a vacation in Peru, for example. This is just an example I thought of. Now, this might be their dream, and they never get to realize it. They never, because maybe they never can afford it. Maybe there's always going to be a pandemic that they can't use planes. I'm not saying that pedophiles all have a dream to molest children. That they have desire to, they are attracted to children, so it's a bit different. But you can sort of see that people don't necessarily need or will fulfill their desires or fantasies. Okay, so maybe I made my points clear. I hope so, at least. Okay, so moving on.
Some of them do seek help, and some of them move past it, and I'm so glad that they do.
I have to say that it's a new expression to me to say that pedophiles can move past it, but it's true actually. Pedophiles can learn to live with their sexuality without acting on it unethically or without it being a source of marked distress. Since those are few of the criteria for the pedophilic disorder, that means that you can be cured from pedophilic disorder. It's just that you can't be cured from pedophilia itself. That's kind of a mindfuck, but it's a fact.
Because at the end of all of this, when you're attracted to kids, literally something illegal, the next phase from thoughts goes into performing the actual crime. And that's what I'm getting down to, ladies and gentlemen. I'm done and tired with this map nonsense.
So this is going to be the last clip I will respond to. And it's pretty weird one, because he says that being pedophile is something literally illegal. And then he goes on saying that the next phase is the actual crime. I mean, didn't you just say that the first phase is crime as well? So why bother saying that the next phase is the actual crime? Now, I could make fun of this. I could make fun of him, but I thought that maybe it would be kind of dishonest or cheap if he just misspoke. Because, let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he meant to say something like, if you want to have sex with children, something literally illegal. Because that would be accurate to say that. So, but for anyone else who might actually be thinking it's illegal to be pedophile, newsflash, it isn't. There's no law that dictates what you can be attracted to. And with that all being said, we are at the end of this response. These were my 5 cents on these issues. I'm not any authority, so feel free to disagree. I would really appreciate some feedback in the comments, so it doesn't feel all I'm doing is making monologues on the internet. Not saying I'm entitled to anything, it's just that it would be nice to have some kind of a discussion or debate going on, but, up to you. So this has been my first unscripted video, and it didn't turn out that great. It's probably not the best video on the internet, but as a first attempt, I guess this is half decent. But I'll try keep improving. Now, before I go, I want to leave you with a quote I saved from 4chan about 10 years ago, because it's quite fitting and relevant here, I think, because it kind of sheds light on this question I have that I sometimes ask myself, like, why these smart people? Because I don't think Muta is bigot of any kind. Like I said, I think he's intelligent, no doubt. But why do these people, why are they so confused about pedophilia? It's almost as if their intellectual capacity gets somehow reduced whenever, the topic is pedophilia. So the quote was relevant then, and it still is, and sadly it will be, I think, for some time. So here goes. Pedophile is a magic word that turns off people's brains. Anything but immediate and harsh condemnation of anything associated is shunned. A word that turns off people's brains. That's kind of scary. And that's all I have. Thanks for listening.